Hello, Golden State Warriors fan. You who celebrate every precise shot from Stephen Curry are already used to nights when the impossible feels like routine. But today, I ask you to take a deep breath, because what is circulating behind the scenes in the NBA has the potential to shake not only the future of the Chase Center, but also the entire balance of the Western Conference. Before we go any further, let me be clear. This is not some cheap social media rumor. These are serious conversations involving agents, executives, and even veteran players, all pointing to the possibility of one of the league's most explosive guards wearing blue and gold. I'm talking about Ja Morant, the player who turns entire arenas into cauldrons with his violent dunks and bold approach to the game. The question echoing among those who understand basketball is straightforward. What would happen if Morant were placed within Steve Kerr's system? The idea is almost cinematic. On one side, Curry, the man who redefined the limits of long-range shooting and forced the entire NBA to rethink defensive strategies. On the other, Morant, a young guard who attacks defenses with speed, courage, and a killer instinct. The combination of the greatest shooter in history and an explosive slasher could produce a devastating effect. Picture Curry moving off the ball, dragging defenders, while Morant carves through the paint. What defense would have an answer for this duo? Of course, pulling off a move of this magnitude would not be simple. Morant is the face of Memphis, a hero to a fan base that sees him as the franchise's future. Taking him out of there would require a negotiation of monumental proportions. It would not only be costly, it would be almost a strategic sacrifice. But if there is one team that has already proven its courage and intelligence in bold decisions, it is the Golden State Warriors. More than just a signing, Morant's arrival would represent a transformation. It would mark the beginning of a new cycle within the dynasty the franchise has built. Under the guidance of Kerr, a coach who knows how to turn individual brilliance into collective machinery, the partnership between Curry and Morant could open a chapter unseen in the recent history of the NBA. But the plot is not limited to that name. While the rumors about Morant attract attention, two other players are beginning to emerge as figures who could earn a place in San Francisco. Two determined youngsters whose stories intersect with one of the most passionate basketball communities in the United States, the Filipino community of the Bay Area. They are Abando and Sotto. Those who watched the last FIBA Basketball World Cup saw firsthand what these two are capable of. They may not yet carry the superstar label, but they embody something Golden State has always valued: potential, energy, and the hunger to prove they belong at the highest level. And in their case, there is also a cultural value that cannot be overlooked. Abando is a forward who plays every minute as if it were his last. He presses, defends, drives, runs, and hits shots from the outside. He is the type of player who transforms a rotation, injects energy into the bench, and lifts his teammates. Steve Kerr has always valued pieces like this, athletes who may not fill up the stat sheet, but who change the pace of the game through pure intensity. Beyond that, his presence would have a huge impact off the court, further strengthening the bond between the franchise and the Filipino fans who pack bars and arenas to follow every game. Sotto, meanwhile, represents an even rarer opportunity. A 2.11 center with mobility and court vision, something hard to find in the modern NBA. He is not just a tall body in the paint. He has the ability to pass, develop mid-range shooting, and run the floor in dynamic systems. Since the days of Andrew Bogut, the Warriors have searched for the formula of a center who combines solid defense with fluid offensive fit. Looney brought consistency, McGee brought energy, but neither combined the full set of attributes that Sotto could offer if properly developed. Now imagine this picture: Curry commanding on the perimeter, Morant slashing through the defense at speed, Sotto setting solid screens and finishing near the rim, while Abando positions himself to punish any slow defensive rotation. That scenario would create an offensive arsenal with multiple threats, capable of confusing even the league's best defenses. But most importantly, these possible additions would bring something that has been needed in the locker room: hunger for victory. Morant is still chasing the title that would prove his greatness. Abando wants to show he can compete among the best. Sotto carries the pride of representing a nation passionate about basketball. They would not just be stepping onto the court to play, they would be stepping in to make history. And if there is one thing that defines the Warriors, it is precisely their willingness to make history. This franchise has already shown, time and again, that it is not afraid to take risks in order to stay on top. The style that revolutionized basketball in 2015 was born from boldness. When everyone said it was impossible to win relying so much on the perimeter, they proved the opposite. Now they may be on the verge of repeating that bold move in a new form, combining historic shooting with explosive athleticism and promising youth. When we think of the Warriors' boldness, it is impossible not to remember how the franchise changed the logic of the NBA. Until 2015, winning by shooting so many three-pointers seemed like madness. Today, it has become the standard. What many forget is that this transformation did not only happen on the court, but also in the decisions made behind the scenes. Every move was calculated not just to compete, but to force the entire league to reinvent itself. And that is precisely what a possible trio formed by Curry, Morant, and the young Filipinos could represent. A new wave of change. The impact would not be limited to the basketball played. There is a cultural and marketing layer that few are considering, but which is vital. The Bay Area is home to one of the largest Filipino communities outside of the Philippines. They are passionate fans who breathe basketball as if it were a religion. The arrival of Abando and Sotto would give the Warriors not only technical reinforcements, but also an emotional and cultural bond with a massive fan base, capable of transforming each game into a celebration with flags, shirts, and chants from the stands. Imagine the effect of this in terms of global engagement. The NBA has always sought to expand its influence in Asia, but having two Filipino representatives on one of the most high-profile franchises on the planet could raise that connection to a level never seen before. It would mean millions of new eyes turned daily to the Chase Center. Merchandise sales would skyrocket, broadcasts would reach record audiences, and the Warriors would further consolidate their role as a global powerhouse, both on and off the court. But let us return to what happens within the four lines, because that is where the magic truly proves itself. With Ja Morant alongside Curry, the Warriors could, for the first time in years, present an offensive system that does not rely solely on the threat from outside. Today, even with Curry's genius, opposing defenses know the team's DNA, space the floor, and bombard from three. With Morant, that paradigm breaks. He is the type of player who forces defenses to collapse into the paint, opening spaces that Curry would turn into gold. From a tactical point of view, the diversity would be frightening. A pick and roll between Curry and Sotto would force defenders to make impossible choices. Chase Curry on the perimeter and open space in the paint, or double-team Sotto and allow the ball to swing to Morant in full speed. In any scenario, the defense would be vulnerable. Add Abando into the equation. With his defensive intensity and his ability to punish on offense when left open, and the puzzle becomes complete. However, every act of boldness comes with risks. Morant, despite his undeniable talent, faces questions off the court. His public image was recently tarnished, and doubts remain about whether he can mature enough to lead a team in pursuit of titles. This is where Golden State can offer something Memphis perhaps cannot: a solid system, a winning culture, experienced leadership, and a coach who understands how to integrate different personalities. Steve Kerr has already shown he knows how to turn even the biggest egos into pieces of a cohesive collective. That was the case with Kevin Durant, who had to learn to share the spotlight. It could be the same with Morant, who would have the chance to rebuild his career in an environment of discipline and trust. And it would not just be Morant who could grow. Kai Sotto, arriving still raw by NBA standards, would find in San Francisco the perfect place to develop. Unlike franchises desperate for immediate results, the Warriors could give him the time to adapt to the pace of the league, gradually earn minutes, and become a reliable piece over time. Not to mention the invaluable learning experience alongside veteran players who have already won everything, an experience worth more than any isolated practice. Ren's Abando, for his part, could be the spark needed to keep the rotation intense, something fundamental in long and grueling playoffs. Players like him, who give their all on every play, often become fan favorites. Just remember how names like Andre Iguodala or Sean Livingston were not the biggest stars, but were crucial in decisive moments. Abando has that profile, a warrior who, even without headlines, can change the course of a game in an instant. This combination, established star, explosive talent, promising center, and versatile wing, would form an almost perfect mosaic, a renewed roster, balanced and full of offensive and defensive options. It would not just be another strong team, it would be an unpredictable team. And in the NBA, where opponents study every detail, unpredictability is as powerful a weapon as any individual skill. And here comes the most fascinating part of this discussion: the ripple effect across the entire Western Conference. The Los Angeles Lakers, Denver Nuggets, Phoenix Suns, and Oklahoma City Thunder would have to reassess their strategies. The Lakers, used to dealing with Curry on the perimeter, would now have to worry about Morant's unstoppable drive. The Nuggets, who dominate with Jokic in the paint, would face Sotto's height and mobility, even if still developing. The Thunder, with their young project, would be forced to accelerate their evolution even further when faced with a rejuvenated Warriors team. More than just competing, the Warriors would once again force others to reinvent themselves, exactly as they did years ago when they forever changed the logic of the NBA with small ball. If we look at the trajectory of the Golden State Warriors, we realize that it is not just a team that has won titles, but an organization that has specialized in defying conventions. When the world said it was not possible to lift the trophy playing with small lineups, they proved otherwise. When experts claimed it was unfeasible to base an attack on three-point shots, they turned that weapon into an identity. And now, faced with the possibility of bringing Stephen Curry and Ja Morant together, the scenario once again arises where the Warriors could redefine the course of the league. It is important to note that Curry is at a stage in his career where he needs partners capable of sharing offensive responsibilities. His genius remains intact, but the wear and tear of carrying an attack for so many years takes its toll. The arrival of Morant, with his youthful energy and ability to take on a leading role, could extend the star's career, allowing him to shine even more as a specialist in off-ball movement. Imagine Curry receiving passes in better positions, free to focus on what he does best, while Morant draws the defense inside. This would not only be efficient but also strategic to preserve Curry's body for the coming years. But it would not only be an attack that the transformation would take place. Defensively, the arrival of Sotto and Ren's Abando would offer new tools for Kerr. Sotto, with his 2.21 frame, would be able to protect the rim in a way that few on the current roster can. Even though he is still in a learning phase, his mere presence would already force opponents to think twice before attacking the basket. And Abando, with his relentless energy, could become that disruptive defender who marks the full length of the court, pressures ball movement, and makes life difficult for opposing wings. This type of intensity is vital in playoff series, where every detail can change the outcome of a clash. From an emotional standpoint, the impact would be even deeper. Ja Morant, with his need to prove maturity and his hunger for a title, would find in the Warriors the chance to turn narrative into legacy. Sotto would have the privilege of representing the Philippines on one of the biggest sporting stages on the planet, carrying with him the pride of millions of fans. Ren's Abando would be the embodiment of the athlete who defies the odds, earning his place through sheer commitment. Together, they would form a combination that not only raises the technical level, but also rekindles the flame of ambition every championship locker room needs. Of course, none of this would happen without challenges. Morant would need to adapt to a system that values ball movement, patience, and reading of the game, in contrast with the more individual style he is used to in Memphis. Sotto would have to deal with the physical shock of the NBA, facing experienced and dominant centers. Abando would need to gain consistency to secure regular minutes. But it is precisely in these points that Golden State's culture stands out. The franchise's philosophy has always been to turn difficulties into growth, and Kerr has a history of getting the best out of players at different stages of their careers. And we cannot ignore the psychological factor this move would cause in opponents. Seeing the Warriors betting on reinvention once again would send a clear message that the franchise is not willing to live off the past. It would be a statement that the dynasty has not ended, it is simply adapting. That perception alone would already create extra pressure on rivals still trying to establish themselves as new powers. From the league's perspective, the repercussion would be immense. Warriors games are already broadcast around the world, but the presence of two Filipino players would transform the team into a global phenomenon. The NBA, which has been trying for years to consolidate its brand in Asia, would find in the Warriors the perfect vehicle to expand its frontiers. It would not only be about victories on the court, but also commercial, cultural, and media achievements, further amplifying the influence of North American basketball. But above all, what would make this combination so intriguing is the fact that it seems to unite different narrative layers. On one side, Morant's quest for redemption and glory. On another, the dream of youngsters like Sotto and Abando to prove they belong at the highest level. And at the center, the living legend of Stephen Curry, about to write yet another chapter of his journey. When these storylines meet, the tale created goes beyond tactics or statistics. It becomes epic, worthy of being remembered for decades. It is precisely this blend of boldness, talent, and context that could put the Golden State Warriors back not only as title contenders, but as protagonists of a new revolution in modern basketball. And if this really happens, the coming years will not only be about winning games, but about once again changing the way the world understands the game of the orange ball. And now, fan, the ball is in your court. What do you think of this possible revolution at Golden State Warriors? Can you imagine Curry, Morant, Sotto, and Abando side by side, transforming the history of the franchise and perhaps of the NBA itself? This is the kind of move that could redefine not only the present, but also the future of basketball. That is why, if you believe that this new chapter can indeed take place, show your support. Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss any news about the Warriors and will follow every detail of this possible golden era that is about to be born. The game is only beginning, and you are part of this journey.